Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. Randy Swaim joining us here. And if you don't know who he is, I'm shocked. He's world renowned, our Marshall Goldsmith certified executive coach and founder of Coaching for Relevance. Welcome back, darling. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm glad you are too. It's always great to be here. Great to see you.
Beautiful. And a little bit about yourself. We must talk, drop about what you do, all of you accomplished. Tell us a little overview, please.
Well, so much of what I've become has just been in my journey. And of course, a lot of this is highlighted in the autobiography that's on Amazon. But for me, I totally have understood and experienced and seen the value of true leadership styles, um, and everything. And also with the Marshall Goldsmith stuff. And also I'm a master level neuroplastician with the Institute for Organizational Neuroscience in Germany. And bringing all that to the, picture is just very key when you're talking about any groups of working teams, people, leaders, managers, whatever, um, because it's so critical. And this is all that I bring, even just if it's in a simple aspect on a given day where you're talking to a few people, kind of thing, uh, or also if you're talking to classes and stuff like that. So it's key, and in today's world, it's critical to to understand a little bit of the differences on that.
Perfect. Thank you. And I got to just promote, book, movie coming out. There's a lot as well. I know it's such a humble, modest man, but just tell us a little bit about that too.
Okay. Well, the autobiography, the title is Bring Freedom to Potential, a true story of overcoming and soaring above the storms of life. It's on the um, Amazon website, and anybody can go there and get it and purchase it. You can purchase it either with Kindle or getting a book, mailed to you or whatever. Um, and it's just a story. I will tell you this, that some of the people that have read just the test parts of my book and all have been amazed with their comments. And so it's amazing on that. But as you said correctly, so Hollywood has completed the Hollywood movie documentary of my life story, that is going to be published. And guess what? The title of that is exactly the same: bring freedom to potential, because that's what I'm all about. Bringing freedom to potential in other people too, to the extent that you can, and to the extent that they're willing to. And but I will tell you this: that if some of the people that have just seen the ad bit of that and have seen some of my autobiography, they are amazed. And there's a lot of people that I talk to that I work with and things like that. And when I mention that, they want to know when the movie is published. And so there's a lot of people that are very interested in getting a copy of it. And you can actually, it's going to be put on HBO and Netflix and places like that and all. It's also being marketed outside the United States, but it's also um, something where people are going to be able to purchase a DVD and get it mailed to them, and so that they have it in their home or whatever. And so all of that is just key. But it's really the central aspect of my story has been this process of overcoming and soaring above the storms in life, because that's sort of what I've had to do. I've had to grow and become, not because somebody is teaching me, but because I'm learning and I'm being aware and I'm growing and things of that nature. And that's kind of what got me here for the first probably 30 years of my life and everything. But it's a key insight. It's a key story. And I think you've heard me say this before, Joe, but um, this isn't just about attention of me, because if I take my last breath, I'm not all worried if there's nobody that remembers my name or anything like that. But what I hope for is that even if it's 20 years after I take my last breath, I hope there's a real group of people out there that know that there was this guy that brought out an insight all this time ago. And you know what? I applied that insight to my life, and man, it made a difference. It made a difference. And that's all, even if they don't remember my name or whatever, but if they gain insights from some of the story and some of what they learned and experienced and all of that, that's what I'm about.
Well, thank you for being here. And for today, let me ask, what path are we choosing to walk down? I know there's always some good, amazing conversation. What is in mind for today, Randy?
What I was going to do is kind of step forward a little bit just from what we addressed last week. One of the things we addressed last week, and by the way, you can throw out a question if you want, or something that you're thinking about or whatever. But you remember last week, one of the things that I mentioned is when we were focusing on strategic thinking and strategic planning, that it's not just about coming up with the goal that your company wants to achieve or your team wants to achieve. In part, it's that, but also there's another part of it where what does your team need to become to truly make radical results happen to get there and to achieve that and to keep it going and everything. And that's kind of what I worked on last week. And remember, there was something last week that I mentioned, that when you're talking about those people, it's not just this or that, but there's a whole spectrum in there that covers the people and all that kind of stuff that the leader needs to be aware of and what they really truly need to do. And there's a lot of people in the world today, and I'll kind of mention one or two little examples, not individual people. I'm not going to mention any names or anything like that, but there's a lot of people out there that are managers that are dysfunctionally doing this in many ways, and and they need to kind of rethink what they're doing to become actual good leaders and to be actually developing their team to the point where, boy, some radical results can happen. And so that's kind of where I was going to go today. It's just a little bit of an outflow, if you will, from kind of what we initiated last week.
Perfect.
The
Let's do it.
strategic planning is not just on what you want to do or how much money you want to get. Strategic planning is, what are you becoming? What is your team becoming? And all that, and that's another little part of this. So yeah, that's just, I was going to kind of take that just a little bit a step further, and I'll give you one example of what we've seen people do, and you and probably a lot of the listeners have probably seen somebody do a couple of these things too. Just real simple, but a leader and a manager needs to be totally aware of when they are dysfunctionally applying this, because when they're doing that, they're turning off their people, they're turning off the mental processing, and they're turning off the motivation in their people, um, and making their people not believe in what your focus is and what you're really trying to accomplish and things. So you just need to be aware of that as your team is going forward.
And I'm here to learn. Everyone, listen up. Randy Swaim is here also today. The lines are open.
Okay.
If you do want to call 631 307 4031, that's 631 307 4031. If you do have any questions as he speaks about anything he's talking about or anything in general, he's here to inspire, to chat, and to really help you. Dive in further to yourself, dive into becoming a better you, diving into being the best you can. And therefore, it really does create success in so many different areas, from family life to work life to being more productive. Obviously, leadership is key with him.
There you go. There you go. And I'll go ahead and just share this one thing. This will be a fairly quick thing, really. But, when you're talking about stepping forward in the direction that you're trying to accomplish with your team or whatever, I will tell you this. I'll just share one thing that I've saw a manager do, kind of do some time ago. I'm not going to say where it was or anything like that because that's irrelevant. But what one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of times you think that as a manager, your job is to literally just point fingers at people and tell them what to do. Da, 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 da. And what you do when you're doing that, you're taking away their mental processing. You're not growing them. You're not helping them become, or you're not helping them show what they have currently in them right now and how you can use that. And when you're talking about leadership and you're talking about this growth
Mm-hmm.
and strategy and who all that is happening, one of the things that you want to be aware of is truly aware of where your people are. And oh, you know what? Boy, I didn't realize that. That's cool, kind of thing. But what you find in a lot of managers that don't understand the leadership aspect of it, you have managers that just simply sit there um, and they their reaction to uh, what they tell you or anything that you might react to it or whatever is dysfunctional. I know I've had managers that went whoa, kind of thing. I've seen managers do that before, when the person they were talking to did not remember one thing about something in their system or whatever. But you know what? If you come in and kind of point out that application of that, that can be a lot different. But you know what? If you just get totally frustrated, or there's another way that you see a lot of people that are managers, and really you see this in a lot of places with guest speakers. You see a lot of guest speakers that sitting up there when they're talking to a group, a team, or a class, or something like that. What they're doing is they're going, blah, 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 this kind of stuff. And
A lot. I
and
know a
what
lot of
what
people. Uh,
yeah, that's right. And you know what? The problem with that, and you see this in a lot of areas, but the problem with that is, and this is what those people are trying to initiate y- the emotions of a group of people, because if they initiate the emotions on it, then they can control, and those people don't have to think. They don't have to do anything. They just, you're making them totally, dependent on you, totally, shut your brain off and just go with what I'm telling you, kind of thing like this. And those are some negative aspects that can come from the emotional aspect of that. But the bottom line is whenever you see somebody doing that, they are not being a leader and they're not really doing what's necessary. Because here's the thing, leaders, if you find somebody, one of the things that a lot of people that are managers have a tendency to do is if you see somebody that has a question or a doubt or is kind of going, you know what, your first reaction a lot of times is to just go, well, hey, just shut up and just do this, do that, and that is not being a leader. What a true leader does is
yeah.
comes in and asks the right question, helps them process well, and to come up with the successful solution. Now, here's the thing: if you're in an environment like I say, from my military background, guess what? If you're in a firefight or a battle, guess what? You may not have time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times when you're looking at your team and you, that experience and that exercise and that growth period there needs to come together before you ever get into the situation. It needs to be proactive before you get there. And that's part of really growing and being, your team ready to go for those situations. And I will tell you that very often, if the manager's mindset is simply doing this one thing and all they're doing is saying, well, you know what, you just got to listen to me, and you just do this, and and that's the mindset, guess what, you are not growing. Because one of the things that you will need to understand is that a lot of times something that a team member asks a question or something like that that they throw out just wondering may make you go, wow, I hadn't thought of that before. And that's part of being a synergistic team, a lot of times. And you know what? It may be that that is not applicable for the situation we're in right now, but you know what? Yeah, let's get together and chat about that. Because you know what? That's good to explore, kind of thing. And we'll talk about, when that's important or maybe when it's not, and all of those kind of aspects about it. So when you're thinking about this aspect of the strategic things that we were talking about, when you're talking about growing your team, it's not just about, if all the manager is doing is being frustrated when they don't just shut their brains off and do what I tell them, and that's it. If that's the way the manager is thinking, the manager is not being the manager that your company wants. And they're not being the leader, and they're not becoming the leader. And so it's just something to think about. One of the things that the leader does, if there's a challenging question that comes up, they'll initiate a chat and a conversation. And guess what? The person can come up with, oh, yeah, I didn't think about that. You know what? Good point. Thank you. Yeah, we'll put that aside, kind of thing, and everything. But that doesn't happen when all you do is getting frustrated and throwing your hands up in the air and kind of acting mad because your people are not just capitulating to what you say and just shutting their brain off. You never want to shut your people's brain off. And the big reason for this, when you're talking about the strategic aspect of it, the reason you never want your people to shut their mental processing off in the neuroscience is because guess what? They may come up with some, projected insights that you didn't see and nobody else on the team saw. But it might be something. This has happened. I've seen this happen once or twice in different teams in the journey in my life, kind of thing. I've seen a couple of times where somebody comes up with a question or a thought, just asking a question about it, and everybody, oh wow, you know what? Yeah, and you know what? They talk about it, and what they do is they come up with a successful synergistic solution that may have been just a little bit different than what they started out with. And so these aspects of some of these applications of the personnel and how you can be getting in the way and destroying your team as a manager, or you can be acting in a much more coaching facilitative style where it really grows your team to radical success that makes the company call attention to you and go, oh wow, wow, you know, and if you do that, where you're just shutting off that little control freak thing and everything, and your dysfunctional reaction to something that sometimes magical things can happen, and it can make people go wow and bring your day. I will say this, that when I was the site manager up at Griffiths Air Force Base for our flight international group and everything, the I was amazed a little bit by how the headquarters of the company had really lauded me. I mean, it blew me away in a positive way, but they lauded me. And what I found out later was that the team members had actually made comments about me and everything, and they were aware of the real team synergy and what was happening there and kind of what I was leading and everything, and so it just it's one aspect that people have to realize, that when you're talking about this strategic aspect that we mentioned last week, like I said, part of that strategic is what you're bringing the team to in order to get there and to achieve and to even exceed the results and stuff. And, a lot of that deals with this aspect of what are you truly bringing in terms of leadership, in terms of mentorship, in terms of your making them feel oneness? Because I'll tell you, if you're a manager and all you're doing every time there's a unique question or something, if every time you do that, you're just getting mad because people aren't just shutting their brains off and capitulating to one thing you said, you know, if that's your response, you're not being a good manager and you're not being a good leader. And and you know, when people, even in tough moments or tough times, if your people want to be with you and make this happen, you have done a lot better. But you have not just gone with this superficial managerial thing, but you've gone into true leadership. And you may not have been an expert with neuroscience, but you brought a certain neuroscience aspect to it without even realizing it. And that's what one thing that's what one thing about a coaching perspective actually does, because it's not just about dictating and throwing rocks at them if they don't just kind of shut their brains off and all this sort of stuff, you know, kind of thing. It's really getting their mental processing going, their thinking, and their vision, and also their synergy. Because I'll tell you what, when you are working with people that do that in an effective way, you want to be working with them. You know what? When you think that some radical results are happening, or you know what, we're better than most of the other groups I've seen out there. You know what? Yeah, yeah, and and there's synergy that just brings together in ways because people are proud and appreciative of being a part of such a team. And guess what? When you're the manager, if all you're doing is pointing fingers, being frustrated, dictating, and all that kind of stuff, and that's all you're doing, you're not getting the job done and you're not being a leader. Leaders do it very differently. And so, one of the things when you're talking about that strategic thing that we were talking about last week with the strategic plan and the team, that's just something you got to be thinking about what are you really going to do to bring your team there. And one thing that for the listeners need to do is think about what do you need to do to make that happen. And it's because it's not like a lot of people think. And so it's just something to think on that. But it's a key aspect of when you're really wanting to make amazing things happen with your team and with what you are doing there. And it makes them want to be a part of your team. If they're hoping to go to another team or to, whatever, leave, guess what? You're not getting that job done and you're disconnecting it. But the bottom line is when you look at that aspect of developing your team from the strategic aspect, there's a dysfunctional way of doing it, which is I've seen some managers do in the career and everything. And there's a definitely functional and successful way of doing it that is done by true leaders, which is not just dictating to your people and forcing them. Leadership truly is about developing your people and helping them see and helping them truly realize the radical results that are successful for your team and how you can achieve way more than you thought. And it's just a key point in that a lot of people don't typically think about because they think it's okay. Well, it's as a manager, it's just my job to tell you what to do. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Not as a leader. It's not. And so it's just something to think about when you're looking to, in a rapidly changing environment, particularly organizational maneuverability aligned. If in a rapidly changing environment, not all things are rote academic. And guess what? You got to be able to have the right solutions that bring radical results, even in an unexpected environment. And that's just something that people have to think about that so often they don't. If you got somebody that's just a manager, that's just pointing fingers and dictating, they are not being a leader, and they're probably not the one you want to be doing that role. So I just just throw it out, just something to think about. Now, the leaders, the managers can become leaders if you know how to help them do that, and if they want to do that. And so it's just something to think about with that. But it's a key difference when you're talking about that strategic aspect from last week about making your team so they can get there and become and all that. So it's just something to think about with that aspect of part of that. I can't hear you.
Hello, hello. The lines are open.
Oh,
Six
okay.
three
Now,
one three
okay.
zero
Now I
seven
can.
4010. If anyone does want to call, we still got 3 more minutes left. But you always speak on behalf of leadership, and they're very insightful too. But what about people that are just like stuck, okay, in a position working for like a dictator who's not a good leader? How do you get out of a situation when you like need that job? What are some of the things you could do? Because you can't really teach them how to change. You don't want like
Yeah.
that's got to be hard working for someone who doesn't have good leadership skills. And this happens a lot. Any advice to someone out there
Yes.
who may be stuck in a situation like that?
What I will do is say I'll ask a couple of questions that are good, because one of the questions that I would ask just as a first question to get some thinking going is what will make that person want to do things differently within them, with who you know them to be. What will make them want to do it differently, kind of thing. And because the people have certain mindsets, and it could be they're just stuck in what they're used to, kind of thing. But the bottom line is, once you get a sense of that, then
Hmm.
you have to be thinking about what is it going to take for them to want to do something different in the direction that you're going. And you know what? When they start to experience something different about the team, and they come to you and go, "What's going on with this? Boy, that I saw this, and oh wow," kind of thing. And you look at them and go, "Well, here's what we're doing on that." And a lot of times, depending on the person, between on the senior manager or something, a lot of times they can sit there and go, "Oh, I didn't think about that. You know what, Jill? You have my compliments. Keep doing that. Keep going in the direction you're going
Hmm.
into, because I did not expect that positive result." Kind of thing. And all all that is sort of part of that. But some of that, if you have an opportunity where you can have a chat with them or conversation with them, um, kind of getting a sense of what their driven factor is on their role and what they see it. And one of the questions you might ask is, well, what's it going to take us to exceed the expectations that you have in your mind right now? What's it going
True.
to take for us to do that? Oh, you know what? I think we can do that.
Yeah.
And it's not just through, you know, just the number of devices and, who are going to sell this or whatever, kind of thing like
Yeah,
that.
I know.
But
Oh my
it's
gosh.
getting a real sense of, and that goes back to what we were talking about last week about the strategic planning. What is it going to take to bring your team to a better strategic vision and thinking and becoming, so that dramatic results can happen. And that, and in that can happen. But you're right. Sometimes a senior manager, um, sometimes you need to be able to have those casual just chats with them and ask a couple of questions of stuff. And but also let them know that, you know what, I'll stay connected with you on this if you want, and we'll be talking about it a little bit going forward. And you
Beautiful.
know what? Most of them would say, okay, keep me posted. Okay. Kind of thing and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And, you just, because here's the thing. One of the ways that you bring people into your team, and let's face it, that senior manager that is over you is still part of the team
Got it.
for the
Yeah.
company,
True.
kind of thing. And, how uh, get the people into being the team and do it successfully. That is huge. And so that's what I would just share as something to think about initially is
Beautiful.
on the manager that you're talking about there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need to ask them? What's the first question or two that you need to ask them? And what most people will do is say, "Why are you like this?" and all this. That's not the question you want to ask.
Yeah.
The question you want to ask might be something like, what will make you want to be part of what we're doing?
Perfect. Thank you
What
so
will
much,
make that happen?
Randy.
So those are just some things to think about on that. And good question, Jill. I applaud you, and good question that you brought up there at the end.
Well, it's just the knowledge I'm getting from you and insight and thinking the thought process, which I hope we all are from when you speak of what we're learning about, being in these situations and with leadership, with life, with work. But unfortunately, we have to go. I'm so sorry, Randy. How do we
It's okay.
contact you?
Well, I tell you what, you can go to my website, coachingforrelevance.com, and go to the bottom of the homepage, and it has my cell phone and my email there, so you can give me a call. I don't do cold call, sales pitches or whatever. If you have a need, yeah, we'll come up with something. But if you just want to have a chat, you don't have to worry about that. So yeah, we'll be glad to if somebody wants to call.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jill. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.